Yeah, usually I get a ping in my feed that you're on live because Facebook is active somewhere in the background. But I didn't
Right.
yesterday. So that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Let me just see if it went live. I tested it this morning. Right. You know, some of the weird things that happen is, well, it depends on whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. But I tested Facebook this morning, and it was fine. And yes, we're back on. We're definitely back on. So that's cool.
Are we back on live?
Yeah, we're live. We're live,
Awesome.
man. The internet.
Okay, I got to wake up and say good morning.
You do have to wake up and say good morning.
I shouldn't be that annoyed by it. It's 8:34, but you know how creative people do odd things at odd hours, and it was a semi-late night last night.
Right. Oh, was it?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I'm doing a huge job that involves photos. We did a corporate headshot thing and I got like 58 photos that I have to process for people, and it came out really well. I'm really happy with it, but it's just, it's that kind of work. You got to sit there and, yeah.
What kind of photos? What size are you using?
Corporate headshots. So we set up a white screen studio in an empty floor in their offices. And so we had white seamless and then all sorts of reflectors. In fact, the whole space was white. And then, of course, you always have problems. There's a whole bank of windows behind where I'm shooting. And I'm realizing that it's looking west, which means that as the day wears on and people come in, the room lights are going to get brighter and brighter. That's a pain in the butt. And we were shooting with a set of Bowen's strobes, a traditional photographic strobe. So I had plenty of light to light people and plenty of light to get a pop white background, the old I'm going to knock you out a white look. And all that worked perfectly, but it ends up with a lot of files. And so now you're processing just lots and lots of files.
Well, is there still a graphics limitation size in Final Cut?
Well,
resolution?
Yes and no.
Okay.
No, because to my understanding, Final Cut has always, since version 1.0, been media raster independent. Whatever you throw in there, it will try to work with it.
Okay.
Including really high res stills. The problem is it's really easy to put a 24 megapixel still on a page and say, well, I just need that for my headshot, so I'm going to shrink it down to being 1 inch by 2 inches.
Right.
But you've still got 26 megabytes of,
exactly.
of pixel information there, and you do 100 of those on a page, and you wonder why your software, why Final Cut is suddenly crawling. Well, you've just given it billions of pixels to calculate every time you move something, and it doesn't like that.
Oh man.
So, it doesn't dumb things down. I think that's something that people had to get used to back in the early days of using Final Cut, is that, hey, stop for a moment, take your photo, which you only need small, and either resize it or just do a screen grab of it that's a reasonable size and use that in Final Cut rather than bringing in your original gigantic photos. And suddenly everything gets real easy and it all works really smoothly.
Well, that makes complete sense.
It makes complete sense. And the problem wasn't a problem. Apple was doing, I think, what everybody wants, which is the resolution you put of this file into Final Cut Storyline is the resolution we are going to keep and work with. But that requires a certain understanding on the part of the user not to throw gigantic things in there. It's like if you just have a little TV in the background, don't throw a red file in there and its native, 6K, 8K resolution.
Exactly.
And scale it down to the little TV in the back. You're just crushing yourself for no good reason.
So you probably knew that 10.4.7 was coming out yesterday because of your connection with Apple and all your secret people that you know. But I didn't. I was completely caught off guard.
I think the whole industry was. I had mentally said, okay, it would be sensible if they get us all together in Cupertino and we're all there waiting for news about Final Cut, and they say, okay, here you go. Here's the new version, and it's a major upgrade, and there you go.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. for whatever reason.
Well, but here's the debate. Is this really a major version? I mean, as far as the average person looking at this, not other programmers and stuff like that know how much work went into it, I think if this is what they showed us at Cupertino, that people would be not satisfied.
Yeah, it's really easy to be not satisfied if you are a feature-hungry editor. And there are a lot of editors who are feature-hungry editors. I want new buttons to push. I want new windows to explore. I want, it to do these things that are holding up my workflow with a single button. And those are all legit requests.
Right.
But underneath that is the robust operation of the engine of the program. And if that slows down, nothing else is joyful in your life. So this metal rewrite, really just cutting out some of the architectural underpinnings of 10 and writing it on a foundation of metal, is going to set it up, I believe, for a future of a lot more performance and a lot more features, because there are certain things we were talking about stills, right?
Yeah.
And so in the photo editing app I'm using, I now have 30 or 40, and it got up. First the executive, so I had 10 or 20, and things were still working really smoothly. And then you get to the point where you have 25 really large raster photos, and things start slowing down the program because it's reading into RAM all this data and then trying to make decisions about whether the next one I add should just get added to the stack or whether it should flush something out, and how does it know what I'm going to do? Too much data slows computers down.
Right.
And we are constantly, particularly in video and imaging, getting more and more data. These files are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's kind of logarithmic. You take something that's 1 by 1 and turn it to 2 by 2, it doesn't get twice as big. It's 4 times as big.
Right. Well, that's the same thing when I'm shooting in 4K and the proxies are 1080p.
Right. It's the inverse square principle. You go from 1 inches to 3 inches, it doesn't get 3 times bigger, it gets 9 times bigger, because that's how this works. So we are all facing this less expensive cameras capturing more pixels constantly. And, the Blackmagic 6K camera, suddenly you can have 4 6K images that you're trying to manage on your screen simultaneously. And that's so many bits that, as people have notably indicated with some of those programs that Apple is promoting now, that where we can put 4 of those shots up on screen, it can only really work with 2 of them, not because it doesn't know how to read the files, but because there's just too many bits to rationally handle with the speed of the chips, as great as they are, and they're amazing. You're still over the capabilities to work with 4 of those. You can only work with 2 right now.
Right.
So metal is one of those, I think, architectural levels that they're putting in so that when this future continues to move towards us, we are not in the middle of the bottleneck.
No, absolutely. But one of the things, though, is I'm not even sure. You said that people are, editors are feature hungry, but it's not necessarily. I mean, we want some features. It's the way that Apple has updated Final Cut Pro in the past. This is way overdue. We're going to be at 2 years between 10.4 and 10.5 at the summit. Typically, right. 18 months, 16 months, and 14 months have been the full number of updates in the past. So it's not just features, of course, but people are expecting 10.5. I think we're going to see at least a preview of 10.5 at the summit. At least.
Maybe. That would be awesome. And I would love that. I would love to know where their thinking is now that they have done this architectural rebuild and they've got metal as the core framework, what they're thinking that will allow. Whether there's truly new capabilities that they can plumb in because they had ideas, they tried them, and they looked at the current state of hardware and software and said, if we throw that new capability, it's going to bog things down and nobody's going to be happy because instead of a snappy, fast-moving program, it feels buggy. You do something and then you have to wait for a second until it does it.
Sure.
And we don't like that. We like, click and done, click and done. I want to just play the piano. I don't want any delay between hitting A and it sounding A. And so I think they just have to do a balance. And I think, they just realized, plus I just think the technology has moved forward. They could do metal. They had new generations of processors. They had new generations of GPUs. They had new generations of all this stuff. So why not rewrite to take maximum advantage of the hardware that's hiding inside our boxes?
Well, that's true. So do you know when the first time that they used metal with Final Cut Pro, Metal 1 or whatever it was? Do you know what version?
I think it was two worldwide developer conferences ago. So the last one was just 4 months ago, and then June. So there would be a year before it where they started talking about metal. And I remember I don't know whether it's Phil Schiller or somebody on stage at the WWDC talking about this new process that was going to be coming into the Mac world. And here we are, I guess 18 months later. It may have been longer than that in the labs being developed. In fact, I'm sure it was. But now we're here and it's real. And there's going to be some stretching pains, guys. This whole 32-bit app kerfluffle is a necessary function of this.
Well, that's true. That's true. But once again, based on prior summits, based on what Apple has done in the past, people are expecting 10.5, at least by the summit. So 10.4.7 is a great way to get that out of the way of 10.5.
Yeah, that's possible.
It's there already. The metal thing is there. The interesting thing is yesterday during the Final Cut Pro, everybody looking at what's going on with 10.4.7, they kept mentioning the Mac Pro in the update notes. Mac Pro is not available yet.
Yes.
I kept checking in the live stream. I kept checking the store. Nope. Coming this fall. So
listen, I'm a speculative kind of guy. That's what we like to do on these kind of things. And I think there's a really decent chance we will at least see, if not actually get to touch and play with. What was it, 2 summits ago? Remember when the laptops with the ability to handle multiple screens, and they had the special room that we were able to go in and actually, I remember Steve Bass, who's no longer with Apple, said, come on, sit down, play with it, hammer on it.
Yes,
that's
he did.
Pretty bold in the demo world, right?
Yes, he did.
The demos are usually, this is behind this plexiglass case. You can look at it, but do not try to push a button.
Well, think about it. So 10.4.7 came out yesterday.
Yeah.
When the summer comes around, 10.4.7 will be out for a solid month.
Right.
Okay. There's not a whole lot of demo stuff to demo for this as far as, I know it's on the underpinnings of metal and all that, but as far as a demonstration, I think the Pro Apps team would be stretched to try to impress 150 people about this update. That's why I keep saying they're going to have 10.5, at least a preview. I mean, when they did 10.4, it wasn't out, but we were allowed to talk about it. It was a public preview. It came out 2 months later, not quite 2 months later in December. And if it's not ready, if 10.5 is not ready, I think we're going to get the same kind of thing. It could be NDA. We can't talk about it, but I think more than likely it's going to be 10.5, and they're going to say you can talk about it. It's coming out in early 2020, whenever.
Yeah, I have the same hopes. I just know that we also have 2 things going on there, though. We have that and this whole issue of people, and I'm stuck in the middle of it too, where 32-bit apps have been now verboten.
Yes.
And so I am going through, and I started it about 4 months ago and did a flurry of it, and then I put it away, and I should have done much more, because here I am going, I don't really want, I promised myself I wasn't going to carry a ton, and I have a ton of 32-bit legacy apps, moving them over that won't function. That's just, for me, bad housekeeping. And remember, I bought an original 128K Mac when it first came out. So you can imagine the legacy stuff. I try to clean it out, but there just gets to be so many files. And when you do a complete migration and you do a brand new hard drive and you migrate things, sometimes you lose how old is this file actually? Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if I had literally files around from the turn of the last century, lots of them probably. And before, because I've been doing this since 1984. So consequently, it's cleanup time for Bill. And Bill has just bitten the bullet. And I said, I'm not going to do this upgrade until I go through and dump as many of the 32-bit files as are still living, 32-bit apps that are living in my world that are going to be useless now as I can possibly do. Here's Brad.
There he is. Hold on one second.
Give me a second to adjust some things.
You're going to adjust some things?
You're adjusting lives, though, so explain it to everybody watching. His windscreen.
I was muting the microphone so that... there we go.
There you go. Welcome.
No, I don't see Brad.
Oh, you don't? I see him. So he's on the feed.
I see his icon on my feed.
Ah, he's in a world of cardboard boxes and stuff with a giant, looks like flag behind him, ready for the lighting kit.
Yeah, this is B&H photo stuff.
There you go. Your check is in the mail.
I don't. Yeah.
You don't see him, Richard?
Nope.
Yeah,
I don't see him on. This happened another time. I also don't see him on Skype. I just see his icon.
You can hear me, but you can't see me?
That's correct.
Strange.
That is correct. Bradley Olson, everybody. You can hear his voice.
Well, do you want me to try hanging up and calling back again?
Yeah. Well, I actually have to call you. So hang up and let me call you back.
Okay.
Boom. And he's gone.
I don't know why that happens sometimes.
That's way beyond my pay grade.
Well, the problem is it's Skype and it's Microsoft and I can't,
Yeah. It's been working fabulously, though. The last few of your shows that I've watched, they've looked good. They've sounded good. Everything is in place.
So we've had some comments. Justine Robillard says, I'm sure 10.5 at the summit with the demo hands-on allowed. I'm sure the Mac Pro will be demo modeled used. I'm pretty sure confident in that myself, Justine.
My comment is your lips to God's ears, as they used to say.
Right.
That's what we would all like to see. I think it's well beyond time. And if all the engineers have really been just little elves with their heads down, diving into the upgrade and the 32-bit rewrite, then I'm sure somebody in that operation has been thinking about what are the next software feature updates. And maybe we'll get a chance to hear about them.
Oh, I think so. I want to touch that Mac Pro, too. That thing looks fantastic.
Okay, Bradley's back for
me. Can you see me now?
He is not back for me.
Wow.
I don't know why. Maybe because he didn't. I don't know why that is. That's really bizarre.
Do you want Brad and I to talk about stuff while you suss out the text?
Well, I don't know. On my end, I'm still... Let me think of something. Let me just check.
Are you monitoring from something weird?
No, I have... even on Skype, I only have Brad's icon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Must be an East Coast thing. Or no, you're in... Yeah, you're on the East Coast.
Yep.
Brad's in Utah. I'm in San Diego.
Yes, you are.
I'm in my voice booth this time.
I see that.
Yeah, so I don't have to worry about people annoying me. I haven't put a deadbolt on the inside of this. That would be cool.
Well, as long as it's not on the outside of it.
Yeah, that's right. How have you been, Brad? What's happening?
Oh man, I don't even know what has been happening. My second kid turns 1 tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Only 13 more years until he goes insane. Having raised teenagers, been around them.
So it's going to be even crazier.
Okay. Oh yeah. The statistics tell us that almost all of them make it through that intact and successfully, not not in, not in prison or doing something horrible.
So we just got a comment from Fred Rhodes III. Ran Final Cut Pro update last night and is pretty peppy on my MacBook Air 2017. MacBook Air.
Wow.
And upgraded to Catalina. Only lost 2 apps, and the only app I used on the dashboard is gone. Living on the bleeding edge is what he says.
Congrats, dude. That's awesome to hear. I mean, we're starting to identify. The day after, we're starting to get the reports back. Certain things, color finales having a bit of an issue. I'm sure that those guys will get that sorted out. Denver probably is well into it. I was looking through the list, and you can kind of tell the developers who are real serious because they've been on this for a while. How long? We've known for what? It's been, almost a year that we've known that 32-bit apps were going to be deprecated.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've known for quite a while.
Right.
So we got the news that, Bill, you are coming to the summit.
Yes, I am coming to the summit. I've decided this year. I let all my clients know. I sent out messages. There was some grumbling, but grumbling is grumbling. And, worst comes to worst. It's the modern era. I'll find a high-speed internet as high as I can and work in the hotel room late at night.
And Brad is coming with a friend this time.
Well, I usually bring a friend. This time I'm bringing my wife because she's
awesome.
She decided she'd rather be bored with a bunch of nerds than stressed out at work. So, although she says we're going to drive, so she says she's going to take the car and go exploring most of the time. But I did get her a ticket so she could go visit the Apple campus with us because I thought, I don't care who you are, that's a pretty cool, unique experience, even if you're not into video editing. That's a pretty neat thing. So.
Yeah, even if we only get into the restaurant in the spaceship, it's still to be able to walk around a little bit and just see it is going to be pretty cool.
No, it absolutely is. That's one of the things. I'm going to go in Tim Cook's office and.
You keep saying that, and every time you say that, they hire another person for his security detail.
Exactly. So, what do you think? What do you think we're going to do at the spaceship campus? I mean, do they have a tour set up for inside there, I guess? Is that what's happening?
My theory would be just the same thing we've done at the Infinite Loop, where there's probably going to be some conference room or theater, not the Steve Jobs theater, obviously, but maybe a demo room. That's my theory, is they just do the same thing. It's just relocated at the actual new building.
I think one of the things you got to understand, though, is this is not a museum. This is a working office building, and it is a working office building in nearly 2020. And I just finished a job for a Fortune 200 company, and the security badge process just to get into that was pretty complex. I think every company on the planet takes that kind of stuff seriously. And so my presumption is that they know who we are. We will have a certain amount of on-campus access, and I don't know whether we will just be allowed to go get a cup of coffee in the actual dining hall of Apple's spaceship campus, or whether we will get to see any other office or any other thing. I don't know where the team now is located, and I think the team is split into some different. Marketing may be there and engineering may not. I don't know any of that.
Right.
So whether there is a team that we could visit there, that's possible, but I find it increasingly unlikely. I think onto campus, get to the rings, get inside at least the cafeteria thing. But beyond that, I have just a big fuzzy gray wall about whether they allow anything else. And I'm not sure if I was chief of security there, I would allow that, even though we're escorted. Do you remember when we first went to, Richard, I think this was 3 years ago at the Creative Summit, when we first went to visit the Apple Final Cut Pro 10 team? You remember the buses and the badges, and you got checked off, and everybody who had to be on the list, and then and that was just a regular little office building, and we went and saw the presentation and got informed about what they wanted to inform us about, and everybody felt really good about that. I think this is going to be the same kind of thing.
But one of the things that they did on, I don't know if it was the first visit in 2016 or 2017. I think both 16 and 17, they would tell you over and over and over again, you can't take any video, you can't take any pictures.
Right.
But they let us. The one time they said, no, you can. That's the
Well, in the demo room, they let you, but not in the other areas.
Right, exactly. That's what it was.
My understanding, I don't think Richard or I were there in 2015, the very, very first one. And I heard they were even more strict that year. Like they made you leave their phones on the bus, and they were like,
They
there's a
absolutely
whole
did.
shakedown.
Right.
Yeah.
So
No,
they
it-
seem
you
to
know,
be a little bit more relaxed in some ways over the years.
I think that's pretty much the arc of the entire interaction between Apple and I call us a specialty group of aficionados. I mean, we're all people who understand the software. We were out there kind of on the leading edge early, and because of that, Apple liked having us chatting on the boards about how the software worked, because we actually had taken the time to learn how the software worked. And even when we were wrong about stuff, and we were a lot, we were at least wrong from an informed point of view, rather than all the people on the outside going, well, I tried it for 10 minutes and I can't make it work. It's crap. So I think
I like that. Wrong from an informed point of view.
Exactly.
Like go on
Well,
a shirt or something.
nobody sat down with us and said, you're saying that this works this way, and it kind of does, but there's a layer behind it, and it actually, here's why we did that. Nobody ever told any of us that. We never got that close kind of access. Later on, we know people, and we could call up and say, is this really how this works? And they go, no, just do that over there and this, and then, oh, okay, that's how it works. But this is an evolving process, and Apple is, I think, bending to the will of the more transparent internet thing. They're still doing security, and security is still important.
Oh,
and it always
absolutely.
will be. As long as Wall Street determines every major corporation's fate, and the SEC can come in and say that's too insider, you get slapped. I mean, didn't they just take down a big politician for insider trading by letting his kid know something about a medical? I remember reading that story just a few days ago.
Only one? I think they all do that.
Well, this was just like within the last 3 weeks, somebody got tossed out of a position in, I believe, the House of Representatives because they had insider trading stuff. They had told some medical thing came by and they knew about it, and they made a call with their kid, and the kid had some stock and he sold the stock, and then it was like bingo, insider trading. Yep. The guy lost his job as a congressman. So
we got a comment from Cedric Beasley. Apple Mac Pro specs are for major studios. They focused on the hardware to get that available for serious filmmakers and studios. Now it is time for Final Cut to be beefed up. I'm not sure exactly what the beefed up is. It's pretty beefy now. We got another comment from Charles Coleman on Facebook. He says, let's be patient on 10.5. In my opinion, Apple has no incentive to release it before they release the Mac Pro. No, nobody expected that. I think 10.4.7 is the release for the Mac Pro. The update with Metal 2 and Catalina. Although I'm not updating Catalina. Have you, Bill?
I have not, because of that issue with me needing to go through and just make sure that I'm 32-bit clean before I pop into the 64-bit world. But does this start now make some sense? I mean, let's get this rolled out and make this 32-bit, 64-bit thing palpable and important, more important for people. So as people migrate, if they migrate and the problems show up now because they do have something that is mission critical for them that they didn't understand was 32-bit, not 64-bit, and it doesn't work, let's let that pain wave go by before.
Sure.
So that pain wave doesn't land on top of the new software, new hardware. Everything is updating. This seems kind of sensible to me.
So Brian Siegmiller says, Pro Video Formats 2.1.1 last night update, but did not see DNX HR mentioned.
So codecs.
Well, that was Apple said they were going to do that. Apple said they're going to make the codecs for Avid, right? And app
For Avid specifically.
Yeah, and then Avid in return is going to ProRes RAW or something like that. They're going to support ProRes RAW.
Yeah, they're going to Avid's going to support ProRes RAW. Yeah. Now, and everybody is sitting here going, "Come on, Blackmagic, come on, Apple."
Well,
whatever is causing Blackmagic RAW not to run on Final Cut, let's get that sussed out. Everybody wants that.
Right.
And nobody knows how that's going to take place. In a lovely world full of chirping birds and fresh smelling flowers, we will get to the Creative Summit and that will be one of the first announcements. I'm not sure that's the world we live in.
Right.
So,
I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Everybody would love that. It would make major news. The community, one thing Apple does do is they put on these events. They allow them. They work with partners and they put these things on that are kind of like one step removed from Apple. Because this is a Future Media Concepts event. It's not really an Apple event, although Apple has authorized it and works in conjunction with it.
Yes, they have.
But it's not Apple's employees who are putting this on.
We had a comment on YouTube that said, I had a long day with Apple Motion update. Export UI enhancement is great. So I understand they have a share menu now with Motion. Is that the big thing? Some kind of a share menu like they have in Final Cut?
I haven't been in Motion in the last 2 weeks, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Motion doesn't get updated as extensively as Final Cut does. Neither does Compressor. They get small updates to be compatible.
Yeah, that's weird because those are both so powerful, and it's astonishing. We should be very happy that because Apple is Apple, they can do those programs for $49.
It's ridiculous. Should I get Compressor? Should I get Motion? Oh, come on, $49?
Yeah, with
I
the
spend
power
that much on a plug-in
hidden behind Motion. It's like that's a house of mirrors. You can get lost in there for a decade.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you gentlemen about, since you're my friends, is I have to give away a free pass to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit.
Ooh.
I mean, that's $925 that Future Media Concepts is allowing me to give away a free ticket. So I got to figure out how to do that.
You don't have a random number generator. It doesn't matter because we haven't got any tickets passed out.
No, exactly. No, I think what I'm going to do is just have people email me, richard@fcpradio.com, or message me on Twitter at RichardTaylorTV, and just tell me why you should get the pass. And a sense of humor is appreciated, or just tell me a story. Either one.
No, there you go. I think my suggestion was trivia question. You don't want to ask a trivia question? Maybe something about classic Final Cut
or maybe something about your documentary.
Something about my documentary? Yeah, I don't know.
Like, what were the transport controls in Final Cut 1 before JKL?
Oh, my gosh.
That'd be a good one.
So Bill, you remember when JK&L came in?
Yeah, I do. I remember specifically because, the Avid people were already using JKL, but Final Cut did not have it upon 1.0 release.
So Brian says Motion has a new export window like Final Cut Pro 10. So people have really liked that. And Justine, my friend from Africa, says she would love to go, but airfare from Africa is way too expensive. I'm sure it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think I'm just going to do that. I will announce a winner this week so people, whoever the winner is, can make arrangements. But there's a couple of things about the giveaway from Future Media Concepts. Number one, you can't sell it. Okay. You're going to have to show up at the summit with your picture ID in order to redeem it. And number two, you also can't give it away. You can't give it away to a cousin or to a friend or whatever. It has to be the person that wins. So if for some reason you win and it turns out you can't go, just let me know and I'll re-give it away to somebody else.
That makes sense. It is fun. If you've never been to one, and most people have not, if you're a Final Cut Pro user or aficionado, it's just fun. It's just fun.
We got a comment on YouTube. Isn't this the first time Pro apps get updated the same day as Mac OS. Is it the first time? I know
I
they're
don't ever
approximately.
remember a confluence like this. I don't. No, I don't. I don't remember it ever happening like this before.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought Tuesday they were going to do it on some Tuesday, but of course they didn't.
Yeah.
They said, no, we're going to work over the weekend, get everything ready to go. You guys are going to be surprised. That's cool. We like to be surprised.
So for the tea leaf readers who like imbuing meaning on things that may not have any meaning at all, this kind of indicates to me that the OS update and the capabilities it brings to this stuff, that to programs like Final Cut, was a focus. That this update is about that. This update is getting rid of the old carried forward crud and moving to a clean new world. And then maybe if we see something in Cupertino that is designed to be among the first generations of programs that are for this cleaner, faster new world. Wouldn't that be nice?
Absolutely.
And there's some things in the operating system and QuickTime that benefit Final Cut users as well. Obviously, it's been pointed out online that you've got things like the sidecar, where you can actually use your iPad and you can use a stylus and you can hopefully draw masks and things right on a viewer in Final Cut. That sounds amazing to me. And finally, I'm like, hey, I'm waiting to see if they're gonna have. There's rumors there might be an Apple event this month, that there might be a new MacBook Pro and a new iPad Pro announcement. Again, just total rumors, but if that's the case, then I assume that the new iPad Pro will be able to support HDR, so you'll have an HDR monitor, essentially for $1,000 or whatever the iPad Pro is going to cost,
Right.
and then QuickTime has some functionality that kind of takes us back to the QuickTime Pro 7 days. I don't know if you saw, you can open up image sequences in QuickTime. And
Yes.
and there's some other. I had the list up yesterday.
Yeah, I heard about that. QuickTime was updated.
A lot of people enjoy the sidecar thing, and to me that speaks for the fact that Apple has always been trying to figure out their place in the monitor space. Remember, we had cinema displays, and then Apple got out of the business, and it was LG that they were doing LG displays, and it appears that they are interested in the display space, but in a non-traditional way at this point. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, they've got the new Pro display, so that's their entry back in it. It's at the extremely high end, and it's designed for all this new Rec 2020 high gamut stuff coming out. So will they fill in the line between an iPad, which seems to me like a clever idea for a side monitor screen extension? Will they do something in the middle between that and the monster display?
Yeah, well, and there's a couple. The QuickTime stuff is very interesting to me. They've got an enhanced movie inspector that'll actually give you more information, like HDR format, color space, bit depth, scale, aspect ratio, time code support. So that's very interesting. Again, these are pro features for QuickTime. We talked about the image sequence. This one I think is key to. We've been complaining for years that when you do a proxy workflow, you lose your alpha channels. So now QuickTime can preserve the alpha channel when exporting a ProRes 4x4 to HEVC. So can HEVC become a new proxy format for for preserving alpha channels or something like that? And then picture-in-picture. But there's a couple other little features. Like one that's really interesting to me, going back to kind of the HDR comment about Rec 2020 HDR and whatnot, is Final Cut now will have the ability with certain. They said with select monitors. I assume the LG ultrafine monitors might be in this camp, but you'll be able to do the tone mapping from HDR to SDR, so you can automatically work. Now we had like a little plugin or whatever, an effect, not a plugin, but we had an effect that you could apply to HDR footage in Final Cut before that would tone map to SDR. But now it sounds like it's an automatic thing with certain monitors that if you have HDR content, but you're looking at, like right now, I'm looking at my 24-inch LG Ultrafine. I'm hoping that I can actually look at and work with HDR content on there. I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to do your final grading on there, but for editing and getting the work done, now you don't have all those blown out highlights and you don't have to apply an effect. You can just work. So these are all really interesting workflow.
Yeah, and you mentioned 4 or 5 things, Brad, and I wonder if all of them, it seems to me that all of them have been dependent on Apple feeling that the 64-bit pipeline and the new metal processor pipeline is now fast enough to support all of these things. Because when you think about it, that the sidecar idea, there's a lot going on to blast higher res material back and forth kind of wirelessly or by a wire, whatever you prefer, between your central processing unit and GPU and your computer and another outboard device. And I'm wondering if the speed of the new technology is what let them say, yes, we can do this and we can do this right. And all the things you're mentioning, it seems to me, have a tap into that. So this let's clean the architecture thing becomes more and more, it seems to me, a play for the future. It's like, get the cruft out of the way. I know it's going to hurt, but 32-bit apps are cruft. They need to be gone.
We got a comment on YouTube. Justine Paula Robillard said, thanks, Brad. That alpha channel on proxy explains something I had problems with. Thanks for that.
There you go.
Well, we still have to see. I should put some asterisk next to that. It opens up the possibility that they could fix that problem that we've been having. We'll have to see if it actually works that way. I'm assuming in 10.4.7 it does not, but hopefully in 10.5 we'll see a more robust proxy workflow, and the alpha channel problem will be solved.
Isn't it interesting that they're going in 2 different directions? We've needed proxy to make things rasters smaller so that we can get more bandwidth or more images through the bandwidth. But on the other side, they're doing metal and continual processor beefiness to give you the ability to not have to proxy. So it's interesting that on one arm, their development effort is let's improve proxy. And on the other hand, their development effort is let's make it so proxies aren't needed. That's an interesting
we know that they were looking for engineers for the Pro Video apps that specifically would look at cloud solutions. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, you got a beefy 28-core Mac Pro with an Afterburner card. Yeah, let's do 8K, whatever. But if you've got people working remotely through the cloud, you've got to, you still have to be in a proxy world. And I also found it interesting in the press release that they said that the MacBook Pro was the most popular computer for Final Cut Pro 10 editors. Did you guys read that?
Doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, I absolutely do.
And again, the MacBook Pro, even, we can hook up eGPUs, but if you're on the road, you're probably not going to want to pack your eGPU. So that's, again, a situation where you're going to have limited storage and maybe not all the same processing that you have at home. So once again, I don't think proxy, even though Apple's like, oh, proxy's a thing of the past. Their hardware guy, Doug, said that on stage at WWDC. I'm like, not really. It just needs to be more, it needs to be more robust and transparent and work.
I don't think it'll ever be a thing of the past, but it's moving into a different space. The movie makers, I remember listening to, was it Jan Kovic, who's saying, I get to work with the ONIG. I get to work with the original files off the high-res cameras and edit on site with those immediately, which was a huge kind of change from the Hollywood dailies come in and you got to send it out and you got to get it transferred into something so you can come back and start editing with it.
We got a comment on YouTube from Chris Fenwick.
Hey Chris, how are you?
Hi, he says more pixels! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! He has one more. He has one more comment, of course. Let me put that up there.
Yeah, let us know when you get your 16K camera.
Chris says, "Hey Bill, is that gear on your wall practical? Is that your signal path?"
Yes, it actually is. And in the voice booth, this is absolutely the signal path. You're not listening to it right now because I'm plugged directly into a a Zoom TAC 2 out to the internet. So I don't need it for the actual voiceover work. But yeah, I set up my voice booth so I can put a person out here, and then in my studio, which is where I normally do this from, which is in the house probably 50 yards, 60 yards away, I can monitor from a recording session from there. So this stuff is feeding the house and a loop from the house into here so that I can work with talent.
There you go.
Well, I'm assuming it sounds like Chris is going to be there at the Creative Summit, and I think he's on some FCP.co live stream coming up today.
Yeah, he's going to be doing something. I think maybe leaving us and going right to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing one of the presentations. I'm not sure what the subject matter is yet. Yeah, but everybody you can go to, of course.
Well, he did After Effects at one of the last ones, and it was very popular for the people who work in After Effects and want to know how to integrate that into Final Cut Pro 10. Chris did a great explanation that I know a lot of people who are deep into After Effects, and that they are legion because it's been a dominating program for so long, really got a lot out of that.
Yeah, so you want to go to, I'm pointing to it, FCPXCreativeSummit.com to find out more. Chris is on the schedule over there. I'm not sure what the subject matter is yet.
Oh, you're talking about as a presenter?
Yeah, as a presenter,
summit?
Exactly. So Chris says, Richard, that's super clever how you're doing the YouTube comments. Gold star, thank you. You can buy me a coffee at the summit if you want to, if you care to. I don't drink, so you can't buy me a drink. It'll be great to see everybody again, won't it?
It'll be fabulous to see him. This is like, for those of us who've been going 4 or 5 years, this is the one chance we have to really sit down and shake hands with and talk and tell jokes with and pat on the back the people we've been working with remotely for decades, or for a decade.
Well, it's our annual family reunion.
It is.
Chris says coffee on the way. Excellent. So, hey, by the way, I have up on FCPRadio.com, I have a food and coffee map from the summit.
So are we going to change coffee shops? We had that place across the street that we walked to that maybe 6 or 7 of us went to.
Well, they have across the street, they have a Starbucks, but they have a Pete's Coffee, and they have a, what is the other one they have? They also have a Pete's and a Phil's Coffee. I think that's the one you're talking about. But I got this. Look, I got this up. And there's one thing I want to mention because people have talked about it. So the Juniper is right here in the blue. Across the street is Starbucks. I'm showing a map on screen right now. Phil's Coffee is there. There's another Starbucks up here. I ate at this place called the Habit Burger Grill last year, which was really good. Open flamed burgers.
Habit's great.
Yeah, they got Habits out here in Utah.
Oh,
yeah,
do
we
they?
We've got them in California too.
Okay, but here's the thing. Over here is something new, I think. The Counter Cupertino build-it-yourself gourmet burger chain. That's right up the street on the opposite direction. So
there's there used to be a counter in one of the upscale malls in Scottsdale when I lived back there, and it was nice. It was very nice.
Oh, Chris just commented. He said, fast turnaround editing with Chris Fenwick and Jeffrey Orthwine.
That's great. Jeffrey's joining Chris. That'll be a dynamic duo.
Absolutely.
Well, are they talking about what we did at NAB, or?
Maybe that'd be a good case study.
Oh, probably.
How come I'm not on that discussion? I only ran the camera. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's because your camera buddy Alan Seacrest or Seaward. I can't remember. Seawright. Thank you. It's too many Alan C somethings. No, it's anyway. That he is now working for LumaForge, so he's out of the pod.
So we've got a comment from Ronnie Cortons. He said, installed 10.4.7 on Catalina today. Significant speed bumps on my old MacBook Pro, 5K iMac, and iMac Pro. Way to go, Apple. Absolutely, Ronnie. Everybody I hear from has said even on older hardware, there's speed bumps. Well, this Metal 2 thing is a gigantic deal. no
It
matter
is.
what you're doing. And I think this is a great start leading up to 10.5 whenever we see 10.5.
Platform change is almost always be disappointing in the short run because you think I really wanted dupe detection. Sorry, Sean. But in the heart of things, every single person who touches Final Cut benefits from better performance. Everyone. So it's not just somebody who has this function or needs that function. It's across the board. It's everyone. And the fact that comment about I'm running on a MacBook Air and it's kicking tail, that to me is pretty impressive.
So wait a minute, was the Mac Pro released?
No, not that I've seen. I was looking for it. What?
Yeah.
You guys are online somewhere. I haven't even. I'm not even watching us.
I saw something on Twitter that said something about a price, but we already know the price. The price is $5,999 for the base model.
Right.
They announced that at WWDC since then, but of course they haven't updated anything since then, as far as price goes. So look, I'm going to get the base model. I'm going to get an upgraded CPU to either 12 or 16 core. That's plenty for what I need. And I'll probably update the graphics card. And everything else can be updated over the next couple of years. I can update graphics cards. I can update SSDs. I can update if I ever need the Afterburner card. I don't need it right now because I don't work with ProRes. I work with, H.264 4K files from my GH5 and soon to be my GH6 Panasonic, I hope, whenever that comes out.
I'm holding out hope for the 16-inch MacBook Pro.
Yeah, that would be cool. But how much bigger would it actually physically be? Because that's the
No, I don't think it's going to be
the same. So
I think it's going to be exactly
thinner bezels is the rumor.
Right.
Okay, so a little bit more screen real estate. Speaking
Plus,
of that,
whatever the tech team has optimized for this new metal build.
Speaking of that, I got this.
Oh, you
yesterday.
got your iPhone? Yes.
iPhone 11 Pro Max. So I was expecting this yesterday. I got the notice from UPS it was coming. And then Apple announced all this crazy stuff about Final Cut Pro 10.4.7, and I wasn't excited about the phone anymore.
I'm really disappointed you're not doing this entire chat from your phone, Richard. You know?
Exactly.
I expect you to be bleeding out on the edge.
Can you get Skype on your phone and switch between the different cameras on Skype?
I actually
and have a multicam.
I actually can use my phone both wired and wireless on these live streams. I can do that, but I have nothing to show. I mean, everything behind me is right now is what I got, my stage setup. So,
well, Bill brought up the 16-inch MacBook Pro again. I'm just hoping moving forward that we're going to get more HDR screens.
Okay.
And so that's where 16-inch MacBook Pro. I bought a MacBook Pro last year, but if they had a 16-inch MacBook Pro with an HDR screen, I would trade it in and upgrade this as soon as it came out, pretty much.
Well, I'm guessing it is OLED, and that those are rapidly advancing. But everything that I've seen, everything in terms of any monitor anywhere, always has a subset still. I mean, Rec 2020, you don't want the ability to do its 10,000 nits of brightness. You're going to end up hurting people with that. That's crazy.
Right.
But I don't think the industry has determined yet a set of standards so that we know that this is where we set the new Rec 2020 compliant monitors so that everybody gets the same experience. I think this could be a little bit of Wild West for a while.
So we got another comment on Facebook. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, there's two different, I guess, monitoring nit standards. One is and I guess maybe it has to do with more with processing than it does with monitoring.
Wait a second, I call oxymoron alert. You can't have two standards. It's a standard or it isn't a standard.
Well, there's two formats.
Potential standards.
Well, there's formats, whatever.
Okay.
You've got HLG and PQ are the two different ways to kind of manipulate and monitor HDR content. HLG being a little bit friendlier as far as backwards compliance, and PQ kind of giving you that true HDR scale. And according to Apple's website, the Pro Display XDR does both. And then of course you've got I mean, HDR is kind of a complicated beast because you've got like HDR 10, HDR 10 plus, Dolby Vision. It definitely gets a little bit complicated when you get into that realm. But that being said, now we've had cameras that can support that dynamic range for a while, and now we're starting to get Apple screens like the iPhone, and now Pro Display XDR. It's funny because on one hand you've got a more consumer-driven product, even though they call it a Pro phone, and that's HDR, and then you've got this expensive monitor. So I think bridging that gap with iMacs and MacBook Pros and iPad Pros is the next step for Apple. And I don't really care behind the scenes. I'm sure the way it'll work in Final Cut, now is you just flip on select a button and say this. It's just about monitoring that, because we already in Final Cut have those HDR tools. It's just how many of us are using them, because how many of us have spent the $30,000 on a Sony monitor to actually see this stuff.
Or a flat Earth Scientific for precision monitoring and the rest of that. We're all trying to figure out, is that still the viable path, or are these things like iPads at $1,000 going to give that a run for its money as that display technology continues to evolve?
We got another comment on Facebook. Nigel Thompson, he says, I think the Mac Pro will be out quite soon. I don't actually see 10.5 coming out till January, early next year. That would make sense. We get a preview at the Creative Summit, and they say, to be released in the next few months or whatever. I can see that, but by the same token, once again, 10.4 was out 2 years ago when we get to the Creative Summit. So that's a long time between major number updates. It could be, they don't just work on 10.4.7, and now that 10.4.7's out, now we're going to run over here and work on 10.5. They've been working on both at the same time, I'm sure.
They have been, but I'm sure their attention has been on this entire Metal rewrite, because you're not going to write code for the old system. You are at some point going to say, stop using OpenCL or whatever we're using to blast bits to the screen through the GPU. We're gonna do it all Metal. Right. So
no, absolutely.
Learn Metal, get your chops together, and then we're going to start recoding in these new features to take advantage of the new things. And that's one of the things that it's always been in the back of my mind. They can't write the software to do these things until they're fully conversant with what the API behind it is capable of doing.
Absolutely.
So these engineers have to learn, be steeped in the actual processes that the API allows, and then they have to turn those into software. And so big changes like this means that they had to stop working on the stuff system and relearn, and now apply that to the new stuff.
And so the other thing is they've been working on this for years. It just didn't start at WWDC. So we got another comment from Brian Siegmiller. Will Metal improve Premiere Pro speed? I presume it will, right, guys?
I would
think
so.
That's what Adobe claimed at WWDC. They said Adobe, Avid, Blackmagic, everybody was adding Metal support. But Premiere Pro's got so many other little issues to work out that even if I've been working a job in Premiere, and part of that job requires me to transcode proxies. And in Media Encoder, there's an option to select what type of GPU acceleration, and they already have in there a Metal acceleration. But as far as I can tell, processing the same 4K red raw footage in Media Encoder is not nearly as quick as it is in the Apple Pro apps for me. So, and this is on an iMac Pro.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Metal support, but it's like Adobe's quick patch Metal support as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I always expect,
it's not the deep integration that Apple's doing with Final Cut, and the Adobe team does not have the luxury that Apple does, because they have to support OpenGL, OpenCL, CUDA, and Metal.
Right.
And so their attention is fragmented in how they code the software, whereas Apple can just throw away, everything else and just say, this is optimized for Metal and Metal only.
Like it or dislike it, that's the Apple way of doing things. We're going to make a clean break. We're going to force everybody to go through the disruption now, but that means when we get to the future, it'll be clean. A cleaner path will be more efficient. as opposed to which I think is every bit as legitimate a process that Adobe and others go through, which is our customer base will tolerate X amount of change. And if we push them past that, they're just going to get upset because they've got all these, don't want things to be disrupted. So those two ways of thinking, how much disruption does the user base tolerate versus a company like Apple who says our people should embrace disruption. That's what moves it forward. You can't
Absolutely.
get these new exciting things unless you disrupt the way you've been doing things before. Right now, they've utterly disrupted 32-bit coding. So it's gone.
That's been going on for quite a while. So one real quick again, I'm going to bring up that I am giving away a free pass to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, courtesy of Future Media Concepts. I mean, this is $925.
Absolutely.
Is it the $925 pass or the $995 pass?
No, the $925. It's not.
So not the one with the videos afterwards.
No, not the 900. This year you can get the recordings. As a matter of fact, you can get the recordings if you don't go to the summit, but they're $395.
Yeah.
So it's half the price of going to the summit.
Yeah. Well, plus you don't have airfare.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about airfare. You don't have to worry about hotel. So, I mean, really, you're saving probably $1,500, $2,000.
No, you sleep on the street when you're in California. That's what I see on the news, right?
I'm going to make a confession here. I actually have an Airbnb for Sunday night in Cupertino. Saturday night. When the thing's over, there was only one flight left out, and I thought, something, I'm going to be with all my friends. I want to talk, but I don't really want to spend X number of dollars at the Juniper. God bless, I love the Juniper, but it seemed profligate of me to throw another night at the Juniper. So I just went and found an Airbnb for like $62, which ends up being $80.
Right, exactly.
And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm checking out of the Juniper, and I'm gonna hightail it to an Airbnb near the airport for that last night, so I can still hang with my friends and get home.
Yeah, I'm staying Saturday night too. I'm staying at the Juniper though. So if you have a reason why you want a free pass to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, Future Media Concepts has given me a free pass to give away. Email Richard. Let me see if I can point to it. Here it is. No, it's over here. Richard at FCPRadio.com and tell me why you should get it. Or just go on Twitter, Richard Taylor TV, and just say there why you should get the free pass to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. I will decide this week who gets it. I don't want to, because you got to make, arrangements for a place to stay, and you got to make transportation arrangements. However, you cannot sell it and you cannot give it away. It's going to be tied to your name showing ID at the summit in order to get that. So you can email there, and they're just mentioned on Twitter, and I'll pick somebody. Listen, humor goes a long way, or just tell me a story why you should get it, and we'll see how that works out. Either than that, or I'm going to give it to Bill.
Hey, I'm already registered, but I can get a refund.
Exactly. No, I can't very well give it to friends. I would like to, but I can't very well do that.
Oh, surprise! The person who bought the most expensive item won the contest.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So this year it looks like, in years past, it looks like they had 3 tracks going. This year it looks kind of like 2 different tracks at any given time.
Oh,
rather than
2?
the 3.
Last time we looked, there was only 1 up so far, but it looks like there's going to be 2.
And that
2. Yeah.
That makes sense in terms of if they're going to do the videos. That's the most compelling thing. If there's only 1 track, then everybody understands everything and you come away from it. But if there's 2 tracks, whatever you are in, you are not in something else. And if there are 2 parallel that you're interested in, then that's a way. The extra $100 or $90 or whatever it is a way to get on both tracks.
Well, let's just go find out. I'm going to pull up the web page here. So here's the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, FCPX Juniper Hotel, Apple Park campus, of course. Visit the first time in history that we've got into the campus itself. Last year we were in the visitor center, which was really nice. So I'd like to eat at the whatever cafeteria that the people eat at. Let's look at the program, see what they have. I think they have 2 tracks this year. Let me just pull up that real quick. So far, I've seen 2 tracks. Here we go. Yeah, Thursday, welcome ceremony. Yeah, there's 2 tracks. Now, editing and motion graphics is one. Case studies is the other one. So that's, yeah, there's a bunch of them. Steve Martin, Sam Messman, Nick Haraz, how do you say his name? I think it is. Ian Anderson, Lee Herbert, Patrick Southern, Serena Catania. I know Chris Fenwick's in there somewhere. Steve Martin, Philippe Baez.
Oh, Philippe's coming. That's awesome.
Yeah,
coming up from South America? Or not from South America, from the Czech Republic.
Yeah, I think he's doing the hedge thing.
Oh, awesome.
So, and then, of course, this is the big one, Apple Day. Apple Day, that's what I go there for. And then the annual Expo night is that night. So Apple Day includes 2 separate things. It includes both the visit to the Apple Park and, that's with the Apple Park, but also a presentation from the ProApps team. I don't know if it's going to be at the Apple Park or it's going to be one Infinite Loop. Don't know. But we get a presentation. They're going to show us, hopefully, 10.5, I presume. I'm presuming that. Nobody's told me. I don't have any inside connection. I've been saying that for a while. A lot of people have. And then the Apple team is coming back to the Juniper on Saturday. That's very, very cool. Just talk to us once again. Let me pull that up.
And for those of you watching this who have, if there's something mission critical in your work life, if you're working and your salary and your family and your life depends on this stuff, and you have been running into problems, this is unique in that the Apple team, who was all around, and I say that kind of the team ecumenically, it's not just the marketing people are there, yes. But some of the engineering people usually stop by, and at various things you will see people. And if nothing else, if you sit down with somebody over a cup of coffee and you say, I'm really having this problem, usually they will be happy to not entirely solve your problem, particularly if it involves something that's not released yet. They will not about that because they're still under the NDA standard rules, and they respect that assiduously. But if you have a particular problem, you can actually get really close. And if it's an interesting problem, they will say, hang on a second, let me go get Bob. And Bob will come over and will be happy to quietly listen to every single thing that's causing you pain about that. And Bob's the guy who is eventually, if it turns out to be something they're going to fix, he's the guy who's going to fix it. And Bob is fictional, by the way. There is no Bob as far as I know. But
Bob's your uncle. Bob's your uncle.
That's amazing. I mean, it's just to have that kind of access to the actual people who write this stuff. I remember when a product marketing manager has said, that's a good question. Hang on a second, and goes and gets the person who wrote the code that dealt with that entire module of the software, and she says, explain it to him. So and you're able to do that.
Yeah, Saturday we're getting the Apple panel discussion. Apple product team takes your questions. So last year they took our questions in advance, and they would answer some of them. And you could also ask them questions live. It doesn't mean they're going to answer them, okay? It just means they're physically sitting there and listening to your questions. But they also ask us questions. They asked us questions last year. They asked us, why do we think this is important, or why do we think that's important?
Right.
So Ronnie Corton said... Go ahead.
I think trying to determine, is this a person's workflow issue, or is this a workflow issue that affects lots of people? And if it's lots of people, how many people? Is everybody, because there are problems. We all know Richard's had a list. You've had your list for, a decade or whatever it's
Since
been.
10.5.
Since 10.5.
I started with 10.5.
All these things. Yeah. So it's been 5 years at least, right?
Yeah, more like 10 or 15, yeah.
Yeah, well, So it's all, they know that list. They read that list. We have had confirmation multiple times that they understand all these basic things. But now, in a new world with new stuff and new workflows, because this is not, I don't know about you guys. I don't make the same videos I was making 7 years ago or 5 years ago. I make different videos now. They're all not very few of them are designed for broadcast. Maybe 10% of my work now goes to broadcast. Most of it goes direct to the web. It has to be distributed out across corporate servers with firewalls and all that kind of stuff now. Entirely new set of constructs, and it has to be in different codecs, and some people can read the codecs and some can't. All this stuff is different. So this is where you learn how to navigate all this brand new cutting edge difference. And that's worth its weight in gold to me. I don't know about you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. So Ronnie Corton says the Final Cut Pro 10 team was very prominent at IBC. They didn't, I guess they were there. They didn't have a booth or anything from what I understand.
No, they haven't had a booth at a trade show since NAB, 10, 12 years ago? Long
2007. I know because I got the trivia question wrong last year. I thought it was 2009.
You did?
I thought it was 2000. It was so loud and crazy. In my head, I thought it was 2009. I was convinced. And then I was like, wait a minute. In 2009, Final Cut Studio was released in August because I was in Africa when it came out.
So that's 12 years ago.
So 2007 was the actual last time when they did introduce color in Final Cut Studio 2. Mm-hmm. was the big it was the last time. That being said, Apple has done presentations, like they've had a room at NAB, not this year, but before they've had it.
That's correct. Yes, they have.
But yeah, so if there's another trivia night and Greenberg doesn't if he recycles his questions, there's a freebie. The last time Apple had a booth at NAB was in 2007.
I think,
and if
Jeff
I try to convince you it's 2009, then I'm too tired, exhausted, and not thinking straight. So that was like the only question I got wrong on that trivia night.
So that's Thursday night this year. The trivia contest is Thursday night. So you just get in, check into your room, and off to trivia night.
There you go.
And that's in the actual Juniper itself. So we got a comment on YouTube. Hi, everyone. I think the timing of Final Cut Pro 10.4.7 is mainly to be compatible with a new Mac Pro Display XDR. But it's not out yet, so I'm sure that's what it is. I'm sure that the Mac Pro is just going to absolutely scream with Final Cut Pro and now with Metal too. It's just going to scream.
Well, it seems like they've, for the last few that I've been to, the last creative summits, there's always some new hardware. 2016 there was the Touch Bar MacBook Pro. 2017 was the iMac Pro. And of course, we weren't allowed to touch it. I tried to touch it and I got yelled at. I didn't know that it was just sitting there on the table. I didn't know it wasn't behind glass or anything. And then last year, what did they have? They had some eGPUs and some Mac Minis and stuff running. Right.
Didn't we hear just recently that they're converting the Austin factory that used to make the trash can Mac Pros? They're converting that to make the new Mac Pros.
Well, yeah, so, it's been in Austin since 2013, and I'm sure they're assembling them there. I think there's actually 12. Yeah. I think there's actually 12 different sites in America that are manufacturing Mac Pro parts. Not 100% of the parts, but I think there's 10 or 12, and then they ship them to Austin, and Austin does the actual assembly. So that's great.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that means that if they just announced that, a few weeks ago that Austin was going to be the primary assembly facility for the new Mac Pros, that means that, there's not a ton of them on shipping docks waiting to go out the door tomorrow. Now, they have a pretty efficient system, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have actual shipping units in Cupertino for us to take a look at, because they're going to get the first ones if the lines are up and running and if they're actually plopping out assembled Mac Pros.
No, I think they absolutely will be plopping out Mac Pros from Austin. and I'm surprised the Mac Pro actually hasn't been maybe a pre-order at this point. Maybe the price point. I'm not sure if they know what it is at this point.
I would imagine they're very close to it. I mean, the whole point is that many corporate users turn in, depending on fiscal year stuff, but equipment capital expenditure. That's one of the things that a lot of corporations buyers do. They have to get their projections for fiscal 2020 purchasing in by the end of fiscal 2019.
Right.
Well, a lot of companies, that's January 1st. Many companies, it's not. So it's a rolling thing. But before the end of the year, having it real and orderable makes sense to me, just in terms of how most corporations work in their buying cycles.
Right. Makes complete sense to me as well.
Well, and as you're talking about manufacturing, I wonder, like, I'm sure when they get an iPhone through, that there's thousands upon thousands of units that are produced and just kind of tested and tossed before they actually do the units that actually ship. Unlike maybe a Blackmagic, which, when people get an early Blackmagic camera, there's usually a few units that have dings and problems and whatnot. Fortunately, my 6K pocket Blackmagic camera is great. But I wonder on the Mac Pro side, since it's such a high-end machine, I wonder how many of those test units are rolled off the assembly line before they actually say, here's the ones that can ship. I'm guessing not as many as the iPhones, but...
Well, the only thing we know for sure is if there's any kind of problem on the line, Apple has the resources to get in there and fix it immediately.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to be waiting for RAM chips because they're not a big enough customer. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If it's a prototype, something or other, voltage control, whatever, you're going to take care of Apple first because they have potential to sell massive units of all sorts of things. And if you become a vendor who can toe the line and do the job correctly and deliver on time and deliver with a very, 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 very low failure rate, you can make your fortune off of supplying them, becoming a, high-end supplier to Apple.
Absolutely. So if nobody wins the prize, I'll give it to one of you two.
Okay.
Can't give it to your friends.
Give it to my friends.
Richard,
I got to stop being friends, and then you can give it to me.
That's right. I got in there first.
Maybe you can just... we'll give you guys can split it.
There you go. There you go. We each get $500 off.
Do you think anybody will object? Nobody's listening, right?
Nah,
they don't care. Nepotism, that's fine.
It's the order of the millennium.
I bought 2 passes this year, one for my wife and one for me. So I've sunk enough money into the event this year, I think.
Are you staying at the Juniper, Brad?
I am, yeah, for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll be there those nights as well. So I'm excited. This is the 3rd year back at the Juniper. The 4th, I wasn't at the first one. Bill was at the first one, but I wasn't. That was someplace else.
Yeah, it was San Jose. I can't remember. I remember it was a lovely little walk, but you had to walk from the place that the seminars were from the hotel. It was probably 200, 300 yards, and it was down a block, cross at a light, and down another block. And the convention center had a fencing tournament going on at the same time. So as we would walk out of the original Creative Summit rooms, you'd go down and there were all these people in the hallway doing warm-up duels with épées. Is that how you pronounce épées? I can't read. Yeah, I'm not a fencer. And it was fabulous. I remember stopping with my phone and taking a bunch of just fencer pictures because it was fun.
So let's offer some advice to people. Don't update the Catalina. Don't do it. Wait. If you do it, make a dual boot system, please. Dual boot system. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Here, let me get my radio voice. This is the standard upgrade path recommendation. Please, everyone, do not simply accept the update.
Before you update Final Cut Pro 10.4.7, zip your old one in the applications folder. Yeah. How many times have I seen people say, no, I don't have that version anymore? Well, you should have it. Just zip it. As a matter of fact, I have Final Cut Pro 10.0.0. I found it last year, or somebody was asking about it. I have 10.0.0 that I zipped, long when it comes back. I zip, I maybe not 100% of the versions, but I zip a lot of the versions. So dual boot system is pretty easy with the APFS. Is that what is it? No, it's something else.
And for those of you who don't have Zip It or something like that, it's equivalent to compress. And so you just throw them in a folder and then click on the folder and go up to compress folder, and it'll make a little compressed combination of those 3 files, right? You should have Motion, you should have Compressor, and you should have Final Cut Pro. This version, all the operating versions in that folder, compress the folder, toss it on a hard drive somewhere, and then when you're ready to throw away the current versions and do your update, you'll be safe.
So one more thing I want to mention. Final Cut Pro 10 User Guide is now online. It's not just available. Awesome. Yeah, it's not just available in iBooks the way it has been forever. And it says Final Cut Pro User Guide documentation content will appear in Google and all other search engine results and will be search engine optimized. So
awesome.
I have it up there right now. I'll post the link. Matter of fact, I'll copy the link and post it in YouTube. It's fantastic. The entire guide is now online.
And the guy who writes all that was at the summit last year. I'm sure he'll be back again this year.
He will be.
So you can say thank you for helping me learn.
He always tells me it's the team. He always mentions it's the team. Robin Kurz says, hey, guys. Hey, Mr. Bill.
Hey, Robin. How are you? How are things in Germany?
Speaking of Robin, he has like the best Final Cut Pro tutorial talking about what's going on for Final Cut Pro. He has a great one that came up yesterday. He was on the chat yesterday. Let me bring it up here. And I'll show everybody real quick. Well, you can go to postprofessionals.com, but it's up. Let me pull it up here. It's a really nicely well done tutorial on what's going on with Final Cut Pro, all the updates, all the behind the scenes. It's mostly technical. It's mostly technical stuff. I mean, talking about, as we've been talking about the updates to Catalina, and I think most people agree, don't update to Catalina unless you really, really have to. I don't think anybody has to. But
well, if you have accept all automatic updates on, which I have to give Apple props here. I don't think I've had a problem with one of those auto updates in quite a while, but right now they are pushing out the Final Cut Pro 10 auto updates if you have auto update everything, and I think that might catch a few people and snap them. So I would go into your preferences and software update and turn off, if you have on, auto updating before it hits your version of Final Cut 10 if you want to hold off, and if you think you're going to have a problem with 32-bit apps. If you're a big Color Finale user and you're using it every day, this will break it, and I'm sure it'll be fixed very soon, but you don't want to do that. So if you've got those kind of things happening, and on the boards, you'll hear people talking about other kinds of softwares. I mean, I Pixel Philips Studios, they have some of their little apps break, and older versions, if you haven't updated things like Roger Bolton's Core Melt stuff, it's great software, and there's updated versions that will eliminate the problem. But if you haven't updated your versions and you're still a couple of versions back, that might be 32-bit code in that. It may still work fine for you. After the Catalina update, it's not going to work for you. So you have to manage this transition. This is, like it or not, this is a big transition. It's time to clean up and be responsible about your OS now. And
I just checked that the Mac Pro is still not available. It's still. So it still says coming this fall. Let me see, where is it? Coming this fall. And they click on that, and it says coming this fall.
When does
So I'm
fall
just
officially
curious.
end? When does winter begin? Is it the
December.
equinox?
No, it's in close to Christmas is when winter starts. So you have all that time. It's still fall.
Okay,
Like
so
December
if it's the
21st.
equinox, 21st, yeah. So fall's a long time.
And the other thing is, so if you go to install Catalina, apparently there's a pop-up warning that says these 32-bit apps will no longer work. So that's really cool. So if you have to back out, you can back out at that point. But the easiest thing to do, dual boot your system. Back up your OS before you update it. Be able to boot in that with either USB 3 or Thunderbolt 3 or just a dual boot your startup drive. Then you can go back and forth. You can try Catalina out. You can go back to your other one with just holding the Option key down.
We should also note that even now, if you go into your apps folders and you see a lot of icons with the little white no symbol of them, those are 32-bit and they're not supported going forward. So you can safely, if you have them backed up, I don't know why let's say you have some odd program that you've got for years you love. It's some little, I don't know, calculate the size of all the hard drives around me. And I downloaded this in 2004 and I use it all the time because I love it. And it's got the white circle on it. It's 32-bit. It's going to stop working when you migrate to Catalina. So, if nothing else, just go through and take all those out of your applications folders that have the white thing on them and toss them in one folder and get rid of them out of your boot operating system. And
the white
hopefully
thing around them. I'm just looking through my applications folder, seeing if I have anything.
Yeah, just look for old things that have a little white circle with a slash through it. That's usually a 32-bit no longer going symbol. That's what I've seen. When I've been cleaning almost everything that the 32-bit app finder tells me to find, when I go look at it and finally find it buried somewhere on an old applications folder.
So I got this comment on Twitter from Mark Doomlaser. It says, his advice, install Catalina in an APFS container, dynamically resizing non-destructive partition. So you can boot back into Mojave if you need anything to run 32-bit. That is an excellent, excellent tip. So
if you have enough memory and you have enough bandwidth to do that. Some people, particularly people on the high end who, I want all the memory I can possibly get to run Final Cut and to run certain other apps that I use that are mission critical. So I don't have a lot of extra bandwidth. I don't do a lot of partitions because that eliminates available RAM for the stuff you're running in your main partition. So everybody has a different thing.
Yeah, they
the fact that
do.
It's with APFS that it's dynamically resized.
It says
can help a little bit with that.
Non-destructive.
It should be.
So that's a very good tip.
That's if you've taken all your drives and rebooted them for APFS.
You know what? One thing that aggravates me about Apple, one of the updates that I did updated my drive without my permission.
Yes.
It did it without saying we're going to. It repartitioned, read whatever. It redid not repartition, but it redid the drive format without asking. We're going to redo this. It didn't hurt anything, but I was surprised when I went back there.
Yeah, it was like FAT32 or something that said, no, this is brand new. It's APFS time.
Robin commented, he says, the only reason Bill's voice is so suave is because of the two ominous black boxes in the background. Cheater. You are a cheater. By the way, everybody, Bill is going to bring that voice booth with him to the Creative Summit. Yeah, he's going to set it up in the lobby of the Juniper Hotel. He's going to invite everybody in for a test. And maybe
I said this earlier. I will say it again, just so nobody thinks I'm cheating. Neither of these are in operation right now. I'm literally going out of Neumann microphone into a Zoom TAC 2 and that directly into my laptop via Thunderbolt. And that is the whole signal chain that's feeding Richard right now. These are for when I'm doing voiceovers with another person in the booth. From my edit rig in there, I can determine their levels and I can patch them in and I can play back spots and things like that. And I use VoiceOver. I love VoiceOver. It is so cool for being able to manage commercial recordings remotely, because you go into the voiceover module and it backs up and it gives them beeps and cues, and then I just track voiceover work normally with a separate person in here from me remotely. So I love this system, but that's what these are for. These are a fold back system so that I can determine volume for the user here in the booth, as opposed to what I'm hearing in the recording studio. Yeah.
And Bill will have them set up in the Juniper lobby, and he will demonstrate. One of them does cappuccino, I think, doesn't it, Bill? One of those black boxes? Or does espresso?
No, but this is the fan, and I needed to turn it up because it's getting warm in San Diego today. It was nice and cool when we started, but it's 10 a.m. now, and the sun's higher.
Yeah, but
I don't even want to know what
Robin says, you live in there, Bill. Admit it. Your wife kicked you out, and you're now staying in there. You have everything you need, right?
I needed, listen, I would have had this up earlier, but I had one last little thing. The Wi-Fi connection, which is way back in the other corner of the house, it was intermittent out here. So I had to get a high-speed fiber Wi-Fi extender, which I found, an AT&T one. And so now it seems like it's cool. I don't think I've dropped a frame. It didn't appear like it. So everything's locked in. That's great. It
is great. I updated to 1 gig from Xfinity the last couple of weeks, and it's been fantastic, much more stable. It was my modem. My modem was problematic, dropping things. So I'm going to put these up one more time. Email Richard at FCPRadio.com or on Twitter at Richard Taylor TV if you want to win a Final Cut Pro Creative Summit full package. Well, the full package, not including the recordings.
So $925 worth of swag.
Thanks to Future Media Concepts. They're the ones that are giving this away. So, and I'll come back on this week and we'll do whatever the award would be, whoever's going to award it. I already have somebody who entered this morning before I even announced the contest. They didn't know. So I told them, I said, hey, do you know you just entered the contest? You're the first one to enter the contest. It's not really much of a contest. Just tell me why you want to win, why you think you should win, and use humor, or just tell me a story. That's all. So it's that simple.
By the way, those of you who are telling sob stories, a solo plaintive violin in the background really amps up the emotion of that. So just saying.
No, I don't want sob stories. I don't want sob stories. So Robin says, if I win the package, I will come. Consider that. There you go.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
Absolutely.
Robin was just here not too long ago. He came to visit me in San Diego. It was awesome.
Is that right?
Yeah, we sat and ate fish next to the San Diego harbor.
Oh,
it was
excellent.
Lovely.
Excellent. I think we've solved all the problems of the Final Cut Pro 10.4.7 and Catalina. I think we have. And the ones we haven't solved, go see Robin's video on YouTube, post-professionals on YouTube, and he has explained all the technical underpinnings of 10.4.7 and what Metal 2 means. And
in English, not in German. He was nice to us.
He does both. He did both.
Oh, he did it in German too?
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Thanks, Robin.
It's a very nice produced. It was the best one that I've seen. Very nice produced. So Robin says, had a great lunch, brilliant fish.
Yeah, that's a nice place down there. It's yes.
Absolutely.
Point Loma Seafood. I got to go back. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
So, Bill, you're staying at the Juniper some of the nights, and then
I'm staying Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. Thursday night and Friday night, and then Saturday night. I just after the conference is over that night. I wanted, in case everybody's going out, I wanted to be able to hang as late as I want, and so the flights from San Jose to San Diego in the afternoon and late are sketchy. And I think I would have had to leave about, I think 6:15 flight out So that meant that, just as things are finishing up 5:30, I would be rushing to say goodbye to everybody and get on a plane. I thought, I'm going to get a hotel. I'm going to get an inexpensive room. I can toss my bags into it. And I've had good luck with Airbnb. In fact, a couple of my friends now were former Airbnb hosts. And so when I go to cities that I visit often, it's great to catch up with them.
So we had a change this year. Look at this. The Tip Show, hosted by Chris Fenwick.
Oh, Chris is going to do the Tip Show?
Yes, and it's featuring Nick Haraz and Steve Martin, of course, and a cast of thousands.
Wow.
Hundreds.
So
hundreds anyway.
Jeff and Abba aren't doing it. Is Abba going to be
Abba
there?
didn't do it last year either. Abba wasn't there last year. He did the year before. I filmed him the year before, but he didn't do it last year. Last year was Jeff, and everybody kind of jumped in. So this year it's hosted by Chris Fenwick. So that's great.
Cool.
And that's the last thing of the evening, 5:45 on Saturday. But people, I'm sure, will be hanging around. And also on Saturday, How I Cut 3 Films by Myself Using Final Cut Pro 10, Michael Matzdorf and Michael Yanovich. I had Michael Yanovich on Final Cut Pro Radio just recently. So
Yanovich is a hoot. I love that guy. He and I are Facebook buddies or internet buddies for a while now. And when I was on the stage at NAB doing the raffle, I've never met him. And so he's one of these people who I've known for years. We chat a lot. And then all of a sudden, this feeling of familiarity came over me because he won a prize. And he still came up and collected the prize. And I didn't even acknowledge him or wave. And he knows that, it was like, I don't know what you look like, really. So,
right. Well, I had his wife on a couple years ago on Final Cut Pro Radio.
Yeah, she's a producer or something similar.
Yeah, but she works with Avid, and we were going back and forth about her coming on the show, and she was a little concerned that since she's coming on a Final Cut Pro show, that she might get, bombarded with fun. I said, no. I want to find out from an Avid person why Avid is so entrenched in Hollywood, and I not only found out from her, but I found out from Mike as well. Let me tell you what it is. Mike says when a film is worked in Hollywood on Avid, you could have 10 editors working on the same project at the same time. You could have half a dozen assistant editors. You can have graphics people, 20 people, 25 people working on the same project. That's impossible with Final Cut Pro 10. There's no way. 1 or 2, 3 or 4, you can do things. 20, there's no way that can happen. At least not now, not yet. I'm not saying that it can't happen in the future, but that was an eye-opener to me. How many editors work on its, not actually on the same project, but they're all connected and they can.
Yeah, if your brain was that there's an editor editing a Hollywood movie, that you didn't understand the process. Right.
So now I understand better. When they say that, Avid, now I understand it's the volume of editors and the volume of FX people. So far, I'm not convinced that that's that important to Apple at this point, up to this point. Now it may be going future, but up to this point, it hasn't. That kind of volume of editors and stuff doesn't seem to have been that important, or they would have incorporated something.
Yeah. You know what surprised me, Richard, and this is odd, because we all had our imaginations about what must it be like for an editor on a major motion picture. And I always thought, okay, I thought the Paramount backlot or the one of those major studios, and there'd be little bungalows there and somebody would work. And then I saw actually an editing shop that had worked on some huge thing, and it was just like a regular office building. It was like the 14th floor of a 24-floor building, and it's just an office. It could have been an insurance agency. I mean, granted, the editing stuff was in inner offices, but the support personnel were in cubicles just the same way. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. I always thought it was a little more romantic than that, but it's a business. And editing a product, a feature film, is a business, and it runs just like every other business.
Absolutely.
So hiring and firing goes on like every other business. Clocking in, clocking out goes on. And I'm sure if you are a highly sought after craft editor with a reputation, I'm sure that things like the hours aren't as important, and you're not tracked like a time clock employee selling insurance or whatever. But we shouldn't forget that at the heart of this, it's a business. And as creative and as fun and as fanciful as we like to think it is, and it is, it's great to go out on location, it's great to shoot, it's great to come back, it's great to get yourself in front of your edit system and then try to get your head free of all the distractions so that you can actually do something meaningful with communicating with people. At the underbelly of all that, it's a business and should be treated thusly.
We have solved every single problem with Final Cut Pro 10.4. With Catalina, we've told you not to update the Catalina. Don't do it.
Yes.
Zip your copy of Final Cut Pro 10.4.6 before you update to 10.4.7, so you have both copies if you have to go back. I updated one of my machines to 10.4.7, and there's a new version of the Final Cut Pro Help online. Matter of fact, I will post that in the chat real quick.
Yeah, my last thought is that I hope we didn't give people the impression that you will have a disaster should you allow it to auto update. That's not what's going to happen. If you auto update, most Apple officially distributed auto updates are stable and they're fine and they work great. What your risk is only this. There will be a process that you normally do that is not Final Cut Pro 10 related. And an app that you use to do that process will try to open in the Catalina environment and fail to open because it's 32-bit.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about with this. It's not that it won't work, and it's not, a lot of people may completely take this auto update and everything in their life will be fine, particularly if you've only been around like Max or Final Cut for the last 3 or 4 years. You might not have any problem at all. The people most at risk are us old timers who have a lot of old software back in the hidden portions and think every once in a while, oh, I really want to bring out, that visualizer of my hard drive space. And you're going, yeah, I downloaded that in 2014 and it was written in 32-bit and it's just going to not open. It will fail. So you won't be able to do that process. But that's different than it's going to screw up your machine. Oh my God, if you update your toast. That is not the case.
No, of course. Just if you dual boot,
you never,
back up your original copy, then update the Catalina, have fun with it. I will at some point. I'm not going to do it right now. But anyway, I have the link up there for the Final Cut Pro guide that's now online. You can see the entire guide online. You can search it. It's searchable in Google, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a nice feature that the Final Cut Pro Apps documentation team have done. I know that was a little bit of work. So everybody will see you in Cupertino, I guess, right? The people that are there, that are coming.
Absolutely.
Bill's coming, Brad's coming, I'll be there. And people that aren't there, I'll be doing live streaming, of course, as I always do on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope.
We'll see you then, unless some new version of something drops between now and then we'll be back on the air. Sure.
That would give me a heart attack if they did something like that. The Mac Pro, yes. Yeah, the Mac Pro could come out at some point, but no, that would be too much. I think we'll see a preview. I think we'll see a preview of 10.5 at the summit. And, could they release it? Sure, they could. I mean, like I said, I don't think they went from 10.4.7 and then they started working on 10.5. I think they working on both all along. So
we'll see how bad it hits the Apple stores with people coming in going, my program won't work. Why?
Well, that's the first time they've heard that.
You auto-updated to Catalina in the middle of the night, and now your blessed old accounting program that you've been using for 20 years fails, and they'll get a lot of that. So let's see how bad that turns out to be for the retail folks.
Everybody, Bill, Brad, thank you for joining Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. We will be back this week to announce the winners of the FCPX Creative Summit Free Pass.
Good luck, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.